The man who was bullied in school became the richest person in the world. Not the smartest kid in class, not the one with the best grades or the richest parents or the clearest path to success. The one who got beaten so badly by classmates that he ended up in the hospital. The one who sat alone at lunch, the one who had no friends, no protection, and no reason to believe that life was ever going to get better. And yet that same boy grew up to build rockets that land themselves back on Earth, electric cars that made an entire industry rethink everything, and companies that are now reshaping the future of human civilization. So before we talk about the billions, before we talk about the achievements, I want you to sit with that for a second. Because the real story of Elon Musk is not a story about money. It is a story about what a human being is capable of when they refuse, absolutely refuse, to let the world decide their worth. That is what we are here to talk about today. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never look at your own struggles the same way again. Welcome. Today, we are going inside the full life of Elon Musk, not the version the headlines sell you, not the controversies, not the Twitter wars, but the real human story underneath all of it. Because here is what most people never stop to ask. What actually creates a person like this? What combination of pain, obsession, and vision produces someone who simultaneously runs multiple world-changing companies and seems completely unbothered by the idea of failure? The answer does not start on Wall Street. It does not start in Silicon Valley. It starts in Pretoria, South Africa, in the 1970s, inside a childhood that most people would not survive with their confidence intact, let alone their ambition. This is a story about a boy who was broken early and chose consciously or not to turn that brokenness into fuel. It is a story about what happens when someone takes their deepest pain and refuses to bury it, refuses to numb it, but instead points it outward at the biggest problems they can find. 8 chapters, 1 life, and lessons inside every single one of them that you can carry into your own. Let's begin. Elon Musk was born on the 28th of June 1971 in Pretoria, South Africa, into a world that was already complicated. His father, Elon Musk, was an engineer wealthy by South African standards, but cold, critical, and by Elon's own account, a deeply difficult man to grow up around. His mother, May, was a model and dietitian, strong, independent, and the emotional anchor of the family in ways that would shape Elon far more than most people realize. From the very beginning, Elon was different. Not different in the charming, quirky way that gets celebrated in school. Different in the way that makes other children uncomfortable. He was obsessive, intensely interior, and could disappear so completely into his own thoughts that people around him genuinely worried something was wrong. By the time he was 10 years old, he had taught himself to code on a second-hand computer. By 12, he had built and sold his first video game. Not for fun, not for pocket money, because his mind needed a problem big enough to hold it. That hunger, that absolute compulsion to build, to create, to solve, was not taught to him. It was in him. And nothing, not even the pain that was coming, was going to take it out. School should have been where Elon Musk found his people. It wasn't. Instead, it became the place where he learned the hardest lesson of his early life, that being different is not celebrated, it is punished. The bullying he experienced was not the casual cruelty that most children brush off. It was sustained, organized, and vicious. A group of boys made it their mission to make his life a misery. They threw him down a flight of concrete stairs. They beat him until he lost consciousness. He was hospitalized, and through all of it, he had almost no one in his corner. His parents had divorced. His father provided little warmth, and the school offered even less protection. What would break most people, and understandably so, seemed to do something different to Elon. It drove him inward, into books, into science, into the vast, indifferent, beautiful world of ideas where nobody could touch him. He read voraciously encyclopedias, science fiction, philosophy, physics. He finished the entire school library and moved on. The bullying never stopped. But something in him decided, without perhaps even knowing it, that the opinions of people who wanted to hurt him were simply not data worth processing. That decision, made by a bruised and lonely teenager, would echo through everything he ever built. At 17, Elon Musk left South Africa with almost nothing, A small amount of money, a Canadian passport through his mother's family, and an enormous, unspoken determination to never go back to being powerless. He made his way to Canada, worked manual labor jobs, shoveling grain and cutting logs, surviving on next to nothing. Then he got into Queen's University, transferred to the University of Pennsylvania, earned degrees in economics and physics, and headed for Stanford to pursue a PhD in energy physics. He lasted 2 days. Not because he failed, but because the internet was exploding in 1995, and Elon Musk was constitutionally incapable of sitting in a classroom while the world was being rewritten outside the window. He and his brother Kimball started Zip2, a company that provided online city guides to newspapers with no office, sleeping in the workspace, showering at the YMCA. They sold it in 1999 for over $300 million. Elon's share was $22 million. He was 27 years old. Most people would have stopped there, bought a house, relaxed, enjoyed it. Elon Musk took almost the entire amount and immediately betted on his next idea, because comfort, to him, was never the goal. Progress was. With his Zip2 money, Elon co-founded X.com, an online payment company that eventually became PayPal. But the road was brutal. He was ousted as CEO by his own board while on his honeymoon. The company he had poured himself into was taken from him by the people he had built it with. It would have destroyed a lesser person's trust in the entire idea of building companies. Instead, Elon watched from the outside as PayPal was sold to eBay for $1.5 billion in 2002. His share, $180 million. And here is the moment that defines everything that comes after. Most people, handed $180 million after being pushed out of their own company, would take the money and walk away with their dignity intact. Elon Musk took that money and immediately split it, roughly $100 million into a rocket company, $70 million into an electric car company, and $10 million into a solar energy company. 3 industries that had defeated far more experienced, far more resourced people before him. 3 industries that almost every expert told him were suicide. He knew the odds. He did it anyway. Not because he was reckless, but because he had done the math and decided the mission mattered more than the money. SpaceX nearly killed him. Not metaphorically, financially, emotionally, existentially. The first 3 Falcon 1 rocket launches failed. Each one represented millions of dollars, years of work, and the hopes of a small team of people who had bet their careers on this man's vision. After the 3rd failure, by Elon's own account, he did not know if he had anything left. The money was almost gone. The team was exhausted. The critics were loud and gleeful. And simultaneously, Tesla, the electric car company he had co-founded and poured himself into, was on the brink of bankruptcy. It was 2008. The global financial crisis had arrived. No one was buying cars. No one was investing. He was going through a painful divorce. He was sleeping on friends' couches. He was personally borrowing money to make payroll. And then on the same day, the 4th Falcon 1 rocket launched successfully, and Tesla secured its final round of funding with hours to spare. 2 companies. One day, both saved from the edge of oblivion simultaneously. That is not luck. That is what happens when a person refuses to quit past the point where quitting would be completely reasonable. The darkest moment turned out to be the last one before everything changed. After 2008, the trajectory shifted permanently. SpaceX went on to achieve what NASA, Boeing, and Lockheed Martin had not: reusable orbital rockets, landing boosters back on drone ships in the middle of the ocean with pinpoint precision, cutting the cost of reaching space by a factor that redefined the entire industry. Tesla became the most valuable car company in the world, not because it made the most cars, but because it made the entire automotive world realize that the future was electric, whether they liked it or not. Solar City, Neuralink, The Boring Company, XAI, each one targeting a different enormous problem. Each one led with the same obsessive, first principles logic that says, ignore how it has always been done, figure out how it should be done, and build that. Critics called him reckless. Investors called him visionary. Employees called him demanding beyond reason. All of them were probably right, but the results are undeniable. The boy who was told implicitly and explicitly that he did not belong built things the world had never seen. Here is what the story of Elon Musk is really teaching us. underneath all the rockets and the billions and the noise. It is teaching us that pain does not have to be the end of your story. It can be the beginning of it. The bullying did not make him weak. The near bankruptcies did not break him. The public ridicule, the failed launches, the losing of his own companies, none of it stopped him, because he had decided very early that external circumstances were not the measure of what was possible. He dreamed at a scale most people are too afraid to even speak out loud, and then he worked obsessively, relentlessly, without a safety net to make those dreams real. You do not have to be Elon Musk. You do not have to agree with everything he says or does, but the principle at the center of his life is one that belongs to all of us. The size of your vision is the size of your life. Stop shrinking your dreams to fit your fear. Start building. Start today, because the world does not need you to be perfect. It needs you to be relentless. If a bullied, lonely kid from Pretoria could change the future of humanity, what is your excuse? Think about that. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.